I found out my sister was getting married through Instagram. No phone call, no text, no family dinner with champagne or guess what grins, just a glossy photo of her hand, adorned with the kind of diamond that screamed, "Mom and Dad definitely paid for this." The caption, "Can't wait to say I do to my best friend. #bride, blessed, family first." Family first. That one stung. At first, I just stared. I read the caption over and over, thinking maybe I was misinterpreting something. Then I scrolled through the comments. My mother had left a trail of heart emojis. Dad had written, "Proud of you, sweetheart. Can't wait for the big day." And me? Nothing. No mention, no tag, not even a message saying, "Hey, we forgot to tell you." I swallowed hard and did what any rational adult would do in that moment. I texted my mom. Me, "Hey, just saw the engagement post. Did you mean to tell me about it?" Mom, "Oh honey, it's just a small family thing, nothing big." That was it. No follow-up, no apology, just one cold, clipped sentence that said everything I already knew but never wanted to believe. They chose her. Again. I stared at the message, heat rising in my face. My hand trembled as I set the phone down. This wasn't the first time they had forgotten me, or worse, excluded me. But it was the first time it felt deliberate, calculated. Growing up, I used to think I just wasn't memorable. I wasn't the pretty one. I wasn't the athletic one. I wasn't the one who got straight A's or caused drama. I was just the quiet one, the shadow, the other daughter, the "oh right, you have a sister" girl. But I had always told myself that someday, somehow, I'd earn my seat at the table. I just didn't realize they'd remove the table before I ever got the chance. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about every birthday dinner they had accidentally forgotten. Every family photo where I was running late or cropped out. Every time they used the word "we" and I wasn't included in it. And now, this wedding, this final ceremony of exclusion, felt like the last slap in the face. But the thing is, I wasn't some helpless girl anymore. They didn't know who I'd become while they weren't looking. I had moved out at 21, broke and carrying a suitcase with more dreams than clothes. I started working in event planning, first as an unpaid assistant, getting people coffee and learning how to fix a bride's eyeliner while answering 3 phones. I'd slept in the back room of an office for a month when rent went up. I'd cried in the bathroom after a client screamed at me. I'd nearly quit 5 times. But I didn't. They didn't know that 2 years ago, I'd started my own event company with the money I saved, skipping every family holiday and working every weekend. That last month, I signed a contract for a property, an upscale wedding venue, with vintage charm and a sun-drenched garden space that people fought to book years in advance. They didn't know, but they would. Because something shifted in me that night. Not just anger, not revenge. Something deeper, something that said, "You're not asking for a seat anymore. You're building your own damn house." And when I found out the name of the wedding venue my sister had just booked, I almost laughed. It was mine. Sometimes being invisible hurts more than being hated. Growing up in our house felt like living in a group photo where someone always managed to block your face. There was always laughter, always celebration, always something going on, but rarely was I a part of it. Not really. I remember one birthday, I must have been 11, when I came downstairs to find balloons, a cake, and the smell of lasagna wafting from the kitchen. For a second my heart skipped. I thought, finally. They remembered. But it was for my sister. Again. Her birthday was 3 days after mine. They combined the celebrations to make it easier. Only no one said happy birthday to me at all. I didn't cry that day. I just sat through it, smiled, posed for the photos, ate cake that wasn't even my favorite. When I went back upstairs, I remember whispering to myself, "Next year will be different." It wasn't. My sister Layla was everything I wasn't. Outgoing, confident, effortlessly charming. She didn't ask for attention. It just gravitated toward her, like she had her own personal spotlight. Even teachers at school would say things like, "Oh, you're Layla's sister?" with this spark in their eyes that always dimmed the moment I nodded. And my parents? They adored her. I don't blame her for that. It wasn't like she pushed me away. But when you grow up in a house where every room echoes someone else's name, you eventually stop speaking. What made it worse was that I wasn't bad at anything. I wasn't failing school or getting into trouble. I just didn't shine. Or maybe I was shining in a different direction and no one bothered to turn their heads. But I had this one thing. A notebook. I started keeping a journal at 13. I'd sketch dresses, table settings, floral arrangements. I would draw entire wedding layouts just for fun. Sometimes I'd take pages out of bridal magazines and rework the designs, imagining I was saving a bride from disaster. It was silly, I guess, but it made me feel like I had control over something. That somewhere in the future I could create a moment so beautiful that anyone might say, "She did this." By the time I hit 18, while Layla had her graduation party with 100 guests and a tiered cake taller than me, I quietly applied for internships. Not college, just work. Real work. Something to build with my hands. Something to earn. When I told my parents I was skipping college to pursue event planning, my mom sighed. "Well, that's not really a career, sweetheart, but okay." Dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. Layla just said, "You always liked weddings, huh?" and went back to texting. I didn't expect a parade, but some belief would have been nice. So I left. And when I say left, I mean I packed up 3 bags, booked a bus ticket, and moved 2 states away to a city I didn't know with a dream that made 0 sense to anyone else. I found a Craigslist roommate and shared a 1-bedroom with a girl who sold handmade jewelry and kept her pet lizard in the fridge because it was too hot outside. I worked 12-hour days for a woman named Charlene, who wore stilettos on gravel and threw clipboards when vendors were late. But she taught me everything. How to negotiate with florists. How to save a ceremony when the bride spills wine on her dress. How to read a room and make it unforgettable. I learned grit. I learned patience. I learned how to keep smiling when you wanted to scream. And I learned that being invisible wasn't a curse. It was training. While no one was looking, I was growing roots. So when my phone lit up last week with a message from our venue's booking system, bride, Layla McGrath, groom, Jason Rivers, event date May 12th. I sat in stunned silence. They had no idea whose name was on the deed, and for the first time, that invisibility I had worn like a second skin for so long felt like a secret weapon. You know that saying, "Success is the best revenge"? I used to hate it, because for the longest time success felt like something that happened to other people. People with support, with resources, with a cheering squad. I had none of those. What I had was grit. A stubborn, sometimes self-destructive kind of grit that refused to let me give up even when quitting made way more sense. My 20s weren't glamorous. While Layla was posing in white cap and gown photos and planning sorority formals, I was stuffing marketing flyers into coffee shops, begging local florists to let me set up displays for free just to build a portfolio. I couldn't afford business cards. I made them by hand. I couldn't rent office space. I worked out of diners, co-working basements, and eventually, my car. But slowly, very slowly, things started shifting. A bride I helped with a last-minute bouquet meltdown left a glowing review online. That led to her cousin's wedding, which led to her co-worker's vow renewal. It was a domino effect. I had to chase like hell. Every dollar I earned, I reinvested. No vacations, no shopping sprees, just growth. Just one more referral. One more, "I heard you were the miracle worker." That title became my armor. Even when I was exhausted, even when I wanted to scream into a pillow at 2 a.m., because the bakery forgot a gluten-free cake and I had to bake one myself. I kept going. It wasn't about proving my parents wrong. Not entirely. It was about proving me right. At 26, I finally incorporated Sterling Events. The name came from my grandmother's maiden name. The only woman in my family who ever looked at me like I was something other than an afterthought. I wanted to make her proud. I wanted to build something lasting. And then, the opportunity came. An old event venue on the edge of town, the Ash Grove Estate, was going up for sale. The place was beautiful, but run down. A faded Victorian house with sprawling gardens that looked like they'd been forgotten by time. Everyone passed on it. Too much work. Too big a risk. But I saw something else. I saw legacy. I pooled every cent. Maxed out 2 business lines of credit. I signed papers with my hands shaking and didn't sleep for 2 nights afterward. But it was mine. My name on the deed. My vision in every corner. I spent months overseeing renovations, fighting city permits, arguing with contractors over every detail from tile to light fixtures. And when the grand reopening happened, it was magic. Sunset washed over ivy-covered walls, fairy lights danced on water fountains, and a jazz quartet played under the arbor. Brides cried happy tears. Parents said, "This is perfect." Vendors called it the hidden gem. No one in my family knew. I didn't tell them. Not because I was trying to be secretive. Honestly, they hadn't asked. We hadn't talked in months. I'd send a birthday text, get a thumbs up. I called once when Dad was in the hospital. Layla answered, said, "We've got it covered." That was that. So when I saw her name come across our booking software, I had to read it 3 times. Layla McGrath, Jason Rivers, May 12th. No note, no call, not even a "Hey, is this your place?" Just a cold, automated booking processed through the event manager I'd hired 3 months earlier. Apparently, Jason's family had toured the venue, loved it, paid the deposit. They had no clue, and I didn't tell them. Instead, I just sat there for a long while, my laptop glowing in the dark, trying to decide if this was the universe handing me a loaded gun or just a test of my self-control. Because the truth, it wasn't about the wedding. It was about everything it stood for. Being forgotten, being ignored, being underestimated, again. And now, they were about to walk into my world, my space, my rules. I could stay silent, or I could take back the one thing they never gave me: a voice. The first time I saw them step onto my property, I was standing behind the tinted glass of the bridal suite window. They looked comfortable, like they belonged, like they owned the place. Layla wore a sundress, fluttering around like a Pinterest bride come to life, and Mom trailed behind her, pointing at flowers like she'd planted them herself. Jason looked polite, neutral. The kind of man who wore boat shoes and made everything about himself sound like a LinkedIn achievement. I watched them laugh with my event manager, Tiffany, as she led them toward the garden ceremony site. Tiffany had no idea I knew them. I hadn't said a word. I wanted this moment to play out on its own. I walked downstairs, slowly, calmly. The sun was high, casting soft shadows through the rose arbor as I stepped out into the garden. The look on my mother's face when she saw me was poetic, like someone had just flipped the script mid-performance. Layla blinked. "Oh, you're here." I smiled. "Always am." Tiffany turned to me confused. "This is Sterling. She owns the venue." My name hung in the air like a dropped chandelier. Mom's mouth parted just slightly. "Sterling? Sterling, this is your place?" Layla laughed, nervously. "Wait, what? You own this?" "Yes," I said, "I do." And then I turned to Tiffany, still smiling. "Could you give us a moment?" She nodded and stepped away, sensing something in the air. Something heavier than humidity. There was a beat of silence before Jason, ever the diplomat, spoke. "It's a beautiful place. You've done a great job here." "Thanks," I said flatly. Mom finally found her voice. "Why didn't you say anything?" "I didn't know I needed to," I replied. "It's not like I was invited to the wedding, remember?" Layla looked down. "I was going to tell you." "Sure you were, right after the 'I do.'" The tension was thick now. My mother tried to soften her tone, adopting that old, faux, concerned lilt. "Sweetheart, this doesn't have to be awkward. We love this place. It's perfect for Layla. We'd love to support your business." Support. That word hit harder than I expected. Where was that support when I was 22 and couldn't afford rent? Where was it when I launched my business and they didn't even ask what I was doing with my life? They didn't want to support me. They wanted to use me. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't storm off. I leaned into the silence, let it stretch just long enough to be uncomfortable, then said, "You'll need to speak to the owner about any changes to your package." "Oh wait, that's me." Layla's eyes widened, but she said nothing. Jason looked down at his phone, probably Googling how fast he could cancel a venue booking. My mother stiffened. "Are you saying we're not welcome here?" "I'm saying I run a professional business," I replied, still calm. "And all clients are treated equally. Even the ones who forget I exist," Jason muttered. "Maybe we should discuss options." "Oh, you're free to do whatever you'd like," I said, smiling now, genuinely. "But if you want the full package, you'll need to sign the updated contract, including all the new terms." Layla finally snapped. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" I looked her in the eye. "No, but I'm finally not shrinking for it." She didn't respond. She just turned and walked toward the parking lot. Jason followed without a word. My mother stood there for a second longer, caught between confrontation and confusion, before she too turned away. I didn't stop them. I didn't owe them that. Instead, I stood there in the garden, surrounded by flowers I had chosen, under a sky I had earned, on land I had signed for with shaking hands and silent prayers. And for the first time in years, I wasn't the one being left behind. I didn't cancel the wedding out of spite. I did it because they violated the contract. That was my line, that was my power, and for once in my life I got to decide where the line was drawn. It started 3 days after our garden showdown. I received a long, self-important email from Jason's account. He wanted to change the seating layout, add a last-minute guest list of 30 more people, and replace our in-house catering with a family friend's business for a more personal touch. He attached a PDF of a revised agreement, not signed by me. They thought this was just another favor. Another moment for the quiet daughter to play along and be reasonable. Like I had been my entire life, so I replied, professionally, coldly, firmly. Dear Mr. Rivers, your requested changes are not permissible under the current signed contract. Please review Clause 7.3, which prohibits unauthorized alterations within 30 days of the event. As these actions constitute a breach, I am exercising my right to terminate the agreement effective immediately. A full refund will not be issued. Regards, Sterling Ashcroft, owner, Sterling Events. I hovered over the send button for exactly 5 seconds. Then I clicked. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding, but steady. I didn't know what kind of firestorm that email would ignite, but I was ready. The next 24 hours were glorious. First came the phone calls, 8 of them. I didn't answer. Then the texts, screens worth of them. Layla sent one that simply read, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Mom called from a private number. I declined. Then she left a voicemail that started calm but spiraled fast. "This is your sister's wedding, Sterling. You can't just ruin it because of whatever issues you have. This is family. This is bigger than your ego." Family. That word again. Funny how they only pulled the "we're family" card when they needed some. For years I had begged for scraps of inclusion, phone calls, visits, even just updates, but they never came. And now that I had something they wanted, suddenly I was supposed to remember blood ties? I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The venue was mine, the business was mine, the boundaries were mine, and for once the consequences were theirs. The morning after, I went to the estate like any other day. The staff was prepping for a bridal open house, not a wedding. I walked the halls in silence, touched the backs of the velvet chairs, ran my fingers along the mahogany banister. Then I did something that felt both petty and powerful. I lit the garden lanterns, every single one. They sparkled across the stone paths in mid-afternoon light, glowing for no one. Because today, May 12th, the garden would remain empty. No violins, no vows, no I do, just me. And the garden. And the sound of wind rustling through trees I had planted with my own 2 hands. Later that evening, I posted a photo to my company's social media, just a wide shot of the empty ceremony setup, lit like a dream. Not every event needs guests to be meaningful. Sometimes peace is the celebration. Within hours, it blew up. People commented things like, "This is the energy I want for 2025. I don't know the story, but I feel the power. Whoever owns this space, I love your spirit." The post went viral. We gained over 10,000 new followers in 2 days. 3 new clients signed immediately. One of them was a writer for a major bridal magazine who messaged us directly. "This venue has a soul." Meanwhile, Layla's wedding was cancelled. She tried to rebook elsewhere. Nothing was available on short notice. Word travels fast in this industry. My staff didn't say anything. No one needed to. Because that day, I didn't just reclaim a venue. I reclaimed myself. By Sunday morning, the whispers had already begun. Layla's wedding wasn't just postponed, it was cancelled. People were confused. Invitations had been sent, dresses fitted, vendors booked. There was even a hashtag, Rivers McGrath Wedding. And yet, on May 12th, while guests refreshed their email inboxes and bridesmaids waited for pickup calls that never came, the Ashgrove estate stood still, blooming and quiet. Its garden untouched, no white aisle runner, no floral arch, no "Here Comes the Bride." It was beautiful, really, and messy, and sad, and necessary. I didn't post anything more online after that photo of the empty garden. I didn't need to. The silence spoke volumes. People speculated. Industry friends connected the dots. A few colleagues texted me, half joking, half horrified. "Wait, was that the wedding you cancelled?" Holy hell, Sterling. Respect. One vendor I'd worked with for years sent a message that simply read, "Not all revenge is loud, sometimes it's just justified." But it wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about remembering what I deserved. The fallout came swiftly. Layla unfollowed me on everything. I noticed, but I didn't care. Jason sent a 2-line email, dry and legalistic. "Your business practices have been noted, we'll be pursuing alternatives." He didn't. There was nothing he could do. He broke the contract. Not me. My mother, she came in person. 3 days later, she showed up at the venue unannounced. I was in the back room sorting linens when the front desk rang. "There's a Mrs. McGrath here," the receptionist said. "She says she's your mother." For a moment, I froze. Then I stood, straightened my shirt, and walked out calmly. There she was. Hair perfect, pearl earrings, face tight with unspoken things. "Sterling," she said, in that voice she reserved for when she was pretending we were closer than we were. I nodded. "Hi, Mom." We stood in the hallway of my business, surrounded by curated florals and soft jazz playing on the speakers. She looked at everything like it was the first time she'd really seen it. "This place is," she started. "Mine," I finished, a beat past. "I didn't realize what you'd built," she said, voice dropping an octave. "I didn't know." "You never asked." She winced, like the truth had slapped her. "Look, I know you're angry." "No," I said, "not anymore." "You embarrassed your sister." "She embarrassed me for years," I replied, steady. "She just never noticed." My mother inhaled sharply, as if holding back something, a scream maybe, or an apology. But it never came. Instead, she glanced down at her purse and muttered, "People are talking. Friends, family, asking questions." I smiled, gently but not kindly. "Let them." She looked up, eyes sharp. "Do you feel better, after all this?" I met her gaze without flinching. "I feel like I finally exist." There it was, the moment I'd waited for, not her approval, not even her understanding. Just the chance to say it out loud. For me. Not for closure, not for pity, just for truth. She didn't reply. Just turned, heels clicking softly on the hardwood floor as she walked out of my life. Again, this time, I let her. That evening, I lit the garden again. Not for an event, not for a client, just for me. I sat on the wooden swing beneath the arch sipping tea, watching the lights dance like fireflies. A couple passed by the gate and stopped. The woman whispered, "Oh my God, is this that viral venue?" I smiled quietly, didn't wave, just stayed still. They walked away hand in hand. And in the fading gold of dusk, I whispered to myself, even weddings that never happen can leave something behind. I used to think I needed their approval. I thought if I just worked hard enough, stayed quiet enough, made myself small and helpful and harmless enough, they'd see me. They'd finally say, "We're proud of you." But now, sitting on the back steps of Ashgrove as the string lights hummed above me, I realized something. I don't need their pride. I only ever needed my own. The thing about being excluded your whole life is that you start to build entire worlds in the spaces where you weren't invited. And sometimes those worlds turn out stronger, more beautiful, and more real than anything you were denied. Ashgrove became that world for me. Every detail, every lantern, every wine glass, every wisteria vine crawling up the garden gate was a quiet declaration. I am here. I made this. And I matter. People don't always come back to say sorry. They don't always admit they were wrong. Sometimes they just watch you from a distance, wondering how you became so radiant without their light. Since that day, business has never been better. We've been booked solid for the next year. A bridal blog featured our story, though they didn't name names. They just called it "The Wedding That Empowered a Woman to Take Her Life Back." A subtle title, but I smiled when I read it. Layla hasn't reached out, and that's okay. My mom sent a short message weeks later. "Hope you're doing well. The place looks lovely." No mention of what happened, no attempt at a do-over, just something. A small olive branch maybe, or maybe just guilt. I didn't reply, because this isn't about bitterness anymore. This is about peace. Not the kind that's handed to you when things go right, but the kind you earn through silence, through storm, through standing your ground, even when your knees shake. I don't tell this story to shame anyone. I tell it because I know someone out there is sitting in a room full of people who make them feel invisible. Someone is holding their tongue at a family dinner, wondering if there'll ever be enough. Someone is scrolling through posts of celebrations they weren't invited to, asking, "What's wrong with me?" Nothing. Absolutely nothing is wrong with you. And if you're reading this, if you've ever felt like the extra in someone else's life, I want you to know. You don't need permission to shine, you don't need to be chosen to be worthy, you just need the courage to choose yourself. So build your own table, plant your own garden, light your own damn lanterns, and let them glow. And when you're ready, I'd love to hear your story too. If any part of mine resonates with you, drop a comment below. Not because you owe me anything, but because maybe like me, you're done being quiet and ready to take it back.